So, 2019 is starting out weird. We've got a government shutdown in the United States over a useless and way too symbolic wall that either side apparently is very drilled on either having happening or not having happening. You've establishment Democrats crippling any sort of possibility that future Democrats, which actually are beginning to represent the people, could implement policies that 3/4 of the US population support. You've doxes of politicians, celebrities, and journalists going on in Germany. There's a hacking group that claims to have documents which prove that 9/11 was an inside job, and they have already released some documents that prove corruption in some companies apparently. I'm still 99% convinced that it's a huge scam, because they are taking donations and you have to reach a certain threshold in order for more documents. Basically, they're doing a leak Kickstarter. You've Asian Jake Paul and white Jake Paul promoting actual, just straight up gambling to little children and getting on the trending page in doing that. So look out for the next fucking scandal, because the videos against this are being suppressed and the media already knows. You already know that there are journalists writing articles about this so they can finally sink YouTube, and just the average YouTuber is gonna have to bear the consequences of that shit. It can sometimes seem as though the world is going crazy. And probably also that is exactly what's happening. Now, I know this may not be as common in America because of your abysmal healthcare system, but in most Western countries, people tend to go to the doctor regularly even though there is nothing obviously wrong with them. The two most prominent examples being gynecologists and dentists, right? People go to gynecologists to see if everything's all right down under. Well, women go there, men go to urologists and they don't go as frequently. And you go to the dentist to check the headlights. If you're over 40, you probably go to a general practitioner at least once a year, and they will stick a finger up your ass to check for prostate cancer. And if you are in some form of risk group, like you have a chronic condition or you are predisposed to developing a certain condition, you will also regularly go to specialist doctors so they can see if everything is all right. And I think this is a very good practice and should be expanded upon. I can already see some of you going, hold up. What, you want more people going to the doctor where there's already lines for days and nobody ever gets any treatment because the doctor is just too busy? That's gonna clog the system and cost inordinate amounts of money. That's not true though, is the problem. See, the group within healthcare that will have people go to regular checkups and will encourage you to go to regular checkups, sometimes to the extent that they will give you money if you go to the dentist once a year, are insurance companies. Because obviously, when you go for regular checkups, that drastically increases the chances of early detection. And with a vast majority of conditions and diseases, early treatment is much cheaper and easier and less time-consuming than when it's already progressed to a certain extent. There is, however, one sort of blind spot that many healthcare systems have, and it pertains to diseases which are just not socially accepted as much, and which are super scary because you can't really see them coming, but which are very much real to the extent that they are physically measurable. I'm of course talking about mental health. That system is always clogged and massively overwhelmed, and not so much because it's materially expensive to treat patients who have mental conditions, but because you need to spend a lot of time with the doctor, more than in pretty much any other medical field. And doctors are expensive. And again, because many people like to pretend like mental health isn't a thing, even though it very much demonstrably, measurably is, there's a lot of problems in the mental health field. And it is true that it is also easier to diagnose someone with a broken leg than to diagnose someone with a minor chemical imbalance in the brain that has a cascading effect which makes them unable to enjoy anything at all they experience in their entire life. Doesn't mean we should ignore that problem and just sort of hope it goes away. And I do believe that in a society where the average person gets more and more into stress management and how to actually deal with one's own mental faculties, and we are getting increasingly woke, as it were, about mental health, we should do mental health checkups. So much like once a year you go to the dentist so he can fumble around in your mouth and pretend to understand the Transformers fan theories you found on TV tropes and are nervously rambling about because you're really terrified about the fact that you're in a dentist's chair, you should once a year go to a session with a therapist so he can look if there's any pressing psychological matters that need attending. This is already true to a large extent in organizations that are pretty progressive about mental health, which surprisingly is the military and the police, because obviously the people who work for them are very at risk of developing psychological problems. Of course, it is also more often than not done to evaluate fitness for duty instead of evaluating if treatment is needed, so you're kind of encouraged not to talk about the problems that you have because you might lose your job, but it's better than nothing. But just imagine if the average person was able to do this, the amount of money that could be saved, the amount of lives that could be improved with early detection of psychological conditions. I sincerely hope that as we switch our goals in society from acquiring resources to acquiring happiness, because, acquiring resources in a post-scarcity world, which hopefully we will one day reach, isn't really a valid goal because you've already immediately achieved it. I hope that in that world, mental health professionals will take their rightful place among dermatologists and urologists and the like, so they can regularly see how we are doing. In that kind of world, hopefully mental health will have been normalized and accepted as something that, look, the brain is the most complex organ of the body. There's a lot of points of failure, and even though it is very good at self-repairing, maybe we should look into it and have people who have actual problems with their brain be a part of society and just another person, much like people with wheelchairs are just disabled in the way that they can't walk up the stairs. But otherwise, they're just people. Thank you very much for watching this very short video. There's just not a lot of material I'm gonna pull out of this to artificially inflate the length. Consider supporting me on Patreon and, doing all the things that you would do. There's been a lot of Fast Food Thursdays these past few days. I know there's been a sort of boom in subscribers. This is not normal. In that spirit, if you have mental problems and it's not prohibitively expensive to go see a therapist, maybe go see a therapist just for like a test session or 3 to see if you can deal with some stuff. There's really nothing wrong with it. It's just like having a broken leg. See you around, cunts.